Good afternoon to all of you. I'll be talking on a very pertinent issue, which is about what drives my enthusiasm. I'll start with a very personal story about myself to help you understand that what actually has been the driving force for the enthusiasm throughout my life till now in my career and in my personal life as well. From the school days, I developed a fascination for history, philosophy, and international relations. And not only reading, but writing them as well. So I spent a lot of time on writing whatever I read. Perhaps not because I was very keen on, learning and remembering it, but maybe because my school timing was from 11:30 in the morning instead of 8 a.m. So I had to spend some time doing something else, and therefore writing took some time, and I spent on that. Every day I had to woke up at 5 in the morning because the confluence and the passion and the of the imagination that I was carrying with myself to study world history, the events of world history, that compelled me to wake up every day in the morning, and I started reading history books. That was how everything was shaping up. Whether it was the French Revolution, whether it was the World Wars, I'll just get up at 5 in the morning and start reading about it. And that happened every day. It was not that it happened just one day or 2 days, but every day almost. I dreamed to be a professor, precisely a professor of history, but I didn't become a history professor, but I'm still a professor, if not of history. So what was driving my enthusiasm throughout is a real question which is worth pondering. So I'll give some instances to understand, some examples to understand that what was happening. When I was in grade 8, there was a very honorable relative who asked me to read a newspaper article. I visited him. He asked me to read a newspaper article. Now, I thought that I'll read it with much fluency so that he is impressed by it. So I read it with very, very fluently, and he was quite impressed by it. But then he asked me, explain to me what you understood. And there was the whole issue burden that came to me, that my whole focus was only on reading it well, not exactly on understanding what was written in that article. Another instance I'll give you is about when I was in grade 10, I went to read, mathematics. There was a school teacher who believed, a very, very revered school teacher who believed that I may perhaps not do very well in mathematics in my boards. So he approached me and he said, you should come to me at 4 in the morning every day to study mathematics for the next 2 months. And then I had to go there at 4 in the morning, riding my bicycle with a, because, it was a winter days. So a torch tied to it. And then throughout, I used to go there and reach there, study mathematics and all these things. Now, both these two instances which I have told you, that instill in me a sense of curiosity. That was the main idea, that it instilled in me a sense of curiosity and a dedication to hard work and to work selflessly and to enhance my knowledge at all times and to focus on the work at hand. And all these was adequately driving my enthusiasm toward life. Now comes after I've done my grade 11. After I did my grade 11, everyone was like, I wanted to study history once again. And everyone was like, why you want to study history? You should study science. Because that was the general norm in the society. So finally, what I did, that I had to study physics, chemistry, and mathematics. I studied that. Then came the, and of course I did, passed out with the distinction in physics when I did my physics, chemistry, and mathematics. Now then came the time to go for a graduation. So the question again was, what to study in graduation? So I had one thing, that was history, but everyone wanted, no, study something else, whether you go for engineering, go for science, right? So finally, I ended up with all those, efforts and discussions and all those, my enthusiasm, my commitment to study history, and my inability to convince my parents at that time. I again landed up studying science. So I did a Bachelor of Science with honors in geography, a subject which I had never liked in my school days. So now today I went to the class and I was studying geography, never fascinated by it. But then I gradually started to have a liking for the subject. Now when I reached my master's, in order to take admission in the master's, so I thought geography would be a very natural choice because I've done my graduation in geography. So let's go for it. Now I could not get admission in geography, the places and universities where I wanted. And I ended up doing a master's in international business. And it was like, what is it that I'm doing? But then I thought, okay, let's go for it. So I did a master's in international business finally. So the point is that the subjects kept changing, but passion to become a professor remained intact because gradually the subjects were changing, but I was approaching toward becoming a professor because I was doing a master's now. That kept driving my enthusiasm. Now, after the master's, I got a job for the first time ever to become a lecturer in a college in Kathmandu. So, and perhaps this was because I'm not getting a job here. So, I got a job in Kathmandu, so I immediately went there. I traveled to Kathmandu. I got an interview call, traveled to Kathmandu, took a train, went to Gorakhpur. Then from there, I went to took a, taxi, went to Nepal. From there, I took a bus, went to Kathmandu. At night, I reached there at 2 in the night. It was like raining all the time with all my documents with me. And then next morning, I had an interview. I cleared the interview. I joined in a few days from then. So that was something which was a real happiness for me because I became a lecturer for the first time in my life. Now, coming to the doctoral studies, then I did my PhD. I joined PhD and I had newer hopes to contribute to global discourse on international trade and geopolitics, which kept my enthusiasm on the go. A conference was being organized that time by a Chamber of Commerce, a very reputed chamber, on a theme on which I was researching. And I wanted to attend that conference. So I gave a call to them that, can I come to your conference as a speaker? And the person listened to it, speaker, the conference is after 3 days. Everything is done. So I said, okay, let me talk to someone who is the head in your institution. So he said, okay. I got a call back and the head of that international division talked to me for almost 30 minutes. And he said that I want to give you something. You write an article for us. I'll publish it in our compendium, which we are going to publish. Now, after it was published, I started getting calls from several embassies and ambassadors that they wanted to have a discussion with me. That was precisely around 2009-10. And then I had several discussions with ambassadors and went to several embassies to have meetings with them. I was also invited by the think tanks and universities on the areas of my research. So what was driving my enthusiasm at that point of time? It was my willingness to contribute, to do that hard work, to feel the happiness of participation, and to create a policy impact in my own small way, even at that point of time. Those were truly amazing experiences, essentially carved out of my indomitable enthusiasm. Now, after this, after I did my research, I got a job in a reputed think tank as an associate director. And while I was working there, I got an opportunity to work on issues and topics such as BRICS and China-related issues. And I traveled to China for the first time as a delegate to speak on BRICS as a WTO conference while working there. I also wrote a newspaper article for the first time in 2011 and continue to write today in some of the leading national and international newspapers. Now, in 2012, I came back to academics and I joined FORE as an associate professor, and where I stand here as a professor of international business. So I introduced, out of my interest and curiosity in the area of trade and geopolitics, I introduced a course on trade and geopolitics for the first time. That was in 2012, And when it was offered to the students, everyone was like, what is geopolitics? And why do we need to study it in a B school? And then few students opted for it, maybe 20 or 21 students. Now, when the classes discussion started happening from next year onward, we have a huge number of students coming in to attend a course like geopolitics. And today you will find a course on geopolitics being taught in many premier institutions. In B school, I am talking about, not in universities. In business schools across the world, it is being taught in very prestigious institutions. I also started some of the other courses like the business in Asia Pacific, commercial geography, the latest one being cinema, global business, and film diplomacy, where I talk about film as a soft power. Now, I kept on my enthusiasm ongoing, amalgamating and aligning my knowledge in the multifarious disciplines that I've studied as a course or out of my interest like history, geography, international business, geopolitics, international relations, and some of the fundamental science disciplines as well. Now, coming to the point that for my research on geopolitics, actually I started getting a lot of calls from, this is how things evolved. I started getting a lot of calls from national and international television channels to give interviews or participate in panel discussions as an expert. And I recall that in July of 2016, when a verdict of the South China Sea issue came by the International Court of Justice, I was interviewed by Vietnam TV, which is the state media of Vietnam, to talk about the South China Sea issues, give my view on that particular verdict. So they came here to my office with all the cameras and interviewed me on this. I continue to work on Indo-Pacific geopolitics and has been interviewed by Russia TV and by the BBC in both print and television in different languages. So due to my continuous work on China, I have also been part of the track 2. I got an opportunities to be and invitations to be part of the track 2 diplomacy delegations to China several times. And my extensive travel led me to learn some languages as well. So Mandarin being the latest one that I'm learning. So at least I can say ni hao to all of you. That means hello in Mandarin. And finally from my story, please remember this today, that even if I did not get to study history, I still use history in my research and teaching. Just because of my indomitable enthusiasm, I now repeat what I said earlier, that if I did not become a professor of history, I'm still a professor and one whom the students think, my students think and believe that I'm so good at history. When you go into the world of work, you have that enthusiasm and to actualize your imaginations and emotions, that becomes a source of more enthusiasm and greater achievements. My story is not unique, but is fascinating because to fulfill my dreams, I didn't do great things, but I only kept my enthusiasm alive. And therefore, I'm sure that my story is part of the larger story of everyone's life. And only driving factor behind it is the level of consistency of maintaining our enthusiasm. Thank you for your attention.